Brett Yormark is going to destroy the NCAA tournament if we let him. Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day. It's what we're all about here at the Locked On Podcast Network, being your team every day. On this Friday edition, Pi Day edition, we're going to talk about the potential expansion of the NCAA tournament, why that's a bad, icky thing, but why does our hero, Brett Yormark, want to do it? We'll tell you why it's all bad and yucky and gross. Also, big time baseball series this weekend. Didn't think I'd be saying that in the middle of March, but here's Baylor having one of their best starts in this century against now one of the most famous college baseball teams in America. We'll preview that. We're not going to talk as much about last night's game against Tech because we did a post game. Check that out. All the rest of it and more coming up on Locked On Baylor. Starting with NCAA tournament. Sunday's a big day. Big day for most of us. Not the Julius Caesar fans, but for us, Selection Sunday, we're going to hear Baylor's name called. Lenardi's got him as a 9 seed now. They moved up from the 10 to the 9 line after that win against Kansas State. They are in. It's now going to be determined who they're going to play, when they're going to play, where they're going to play. It's an exciting time of year for college basketball fans. We love that field of 68. And I say 68. The NCAA tournament owns a month of the year. It's the best thing that college basketball has. And to be quite frank with you, it's probably the coolest, most intriguing playoff system that we have in any North American sport. People who don't watch a single game all year are revving up right now. They're about to give you $20 to be in your pool of brackets, and they're going to pick based off the best mascot or the best academic schools. People care about this that don't normally care about college basketball. And it's damn perfect the way that it is. And I don't know who needs to hear that other than our great Big 12 commissioner. But there is a serious push to expand the tournament. And we've heard plenty of coaches talk about it. I think Mike Krzyzewski said we should have all the teams in it, which would just be great for regular season college basketball, right? It feels desperate for the NCAA to talk about expanding this tournament, and it's just going to water everything down just a little bit more. To be honest with you, 64 I thought was the perfect number. We've moved it to 68. There's really no reason to go beyond that. The structure that it is perfect right now. And for all the upsets we see in the first round, literally for all the upsets we see, there are plenty more blowouts, right? For every one upset, there's 2 blowouts across the board the first 2 days of the tournament. And it seems, based off the ratings, that even the first 4 in Dayton isn't doing all that well. And yet, here we see coaches, reporters, commissioners, Greg Sankey was the first amongst them in the SEC, to push for more teams in the NCAA tournament. And now, one of the leading voices in college basketball, and one who I think is great for college basketball and realizing the importance of the sport, is unfortunately on board as well. Let's hear from Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark.
I'm in favor of expansion to 76. I think that's the right number. I think there'll be just some decisions over the next, 90 days, 60 days. I think the economics, candidly, have to work. CBS and TNT have a marquee asset with the tournament. I know they know that. But in order for us to expand, they have to come to the table and provide the right economics. No one wants to get diluted. And we've got a great asset here. So we'll see how it plays out. I know Charlie Baker and Dan Gavitt are working hard at figuring out, where we need to be. and they'll do the right thing. But the economics matter.
See, I just don't understand it. I don't understand the real benefits of expansion. Now, the obvious answer is there. It's the same reason why we have conference expansion and realignment and all that. It's the money. And that's what Brett Yormark talks about in there, the economics of it. But here's the thing, it's already not going as well as it should be with a 68 team field. Craig Meyer, the front porch, had this great write-up about it, about why it's a bad idea. And he points out in here, the NCAA said last year's 4 play-in games drew a total of 6.2 million viewers, which falls well short of the 8.5 million average from the first and second round games on Thursday and Friday, the 2 biggest days of the NCAA tournament with the most games. They're averaging 8.5. And they got a total of 6.2 in the first 4 in Dayton last year. So how is that even going to make economic sense? Because now you're adding in 8 more teams. That's another site. That's more travel. That's more hotels. That's more all of this stuff. For some of these teams, it might not even be worth it to go. Like just on a monetary value. And the other point that he makes in here that was my initial first point is the bubble is already not great. You know, for all of us who don't like the expansion of the college football playoff and what that could mean in the next few years, it's really going to be the same thing in college basketball. If we had 76 teams in there last year, they weren't falling all over themselves to expand to get Indiana State in. And if they did it this year, it would be to get Texas in and Ohio State. Because you look at the first 2 out and the last 2 in, it's Texas, Ohio State, Indiana, and North Carolina. So how is that good? Like the great part about the NCAA tournament is it's supposed to even the playing field for the little guys. And what we're doing is just making more spots for the big guys. Because inevitably that's going to be the next argument, right? When Texas and Ohio State don't make it, Texas is going to be saying, well, we played Auburn and Kentucky and Florida. And who did this SWAC team play? Who did the University of Maine play? Who did American University play? That's where it's going to be the issue. It's the same thing we go through in college football, but we happen to like the NCAA tournament more. And so we just ignore that fact. Just leave it the way it is. I know that there would have been people 50 years ago saying, keep it at 16. That's the best number. But once we're going past 68, it does have the feeling of what are we doing here? Because I think when you could have made an argument for Indiana State last year to expand past 68, you could have just as easily thrown that argument back in their face by saying, why did we let Virginia in? Look what happened there. It was a disgrace to the game. It set it back decades watching that play-in game. The bubble is already bad enough. Because if we go to 76, then we're going to 84. Then we're going to 108. And then we're really losing the plot. Because then we're inviting every Power 4 team. Like, we have a good system going here. I don't like the conference tournaments. I don't like that that's the automatic qualifier. But we've got a good thing going here. We have a certain amount of automatic qualifiers. We have a ton of at-large bids, enough already that we can get non-conference champion group of 5 teams in there. There is an easy avenue for that. We don't need to expand it so that you guys can maybe, no guarantee, maybe make some more money off having 8 more teams in there. And if that's the case, that they're not making the money back, then you have a situation where it's not good for the fans and it's not good for the bottom dollar. So who is it helping? Please, I am begging you. We're about to embark on another great 3 weeks of college basketball. Do not mess with it. Leave it alone. Brett Yormark, you're doing so much for college basketball and reinforcing its importance in today's society. Don't do this. Please don't do this. I'm begging you. We love it the way it is. And if you do too, please let me know in the comments below. Are you in favor of conference expansion? Do you want it to stay the same way it is? Am I overreacting? Are you with Brett Yormark or no? Let me know in the comments below. And like and subscribe because that helps out a lot. Locked On Baylor rolls on. We're going to talk a little baseball, man, because this Baylor baseball team is starting to attract attention. And they have a very interesting 3-game series in the Big 12 this weekend. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. We're all about the stats. Numbers never lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. So take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You might know it as America's #1 sports book. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets in April. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year. Love those 12/5s. And FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com to get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. It's crazy. We're going to be all basketball here, and we certainly will be for next week. We've got spring football coming up, but lest we forget, it is baseball season. And finally, for the first time in years, it feels like, Baylor fans can say, it's baseball season. And they open up the conference slate tonight, going through this weekend in Lawrence, taking on the surprise Kansas Jayhawks. In fact, these might be the two biggest surprises in the conference right now, Baylor and Kansas. And Baylor's hot, 13-3. In fact, it's one of the best starts they've ever had. It's the fourth time since 1995, so the last 30 years, that they've won 13 or more of their last 16 games, or their first 16 games. And I know that sounds like a cherry-picking stat, but guys, that's really impressive for where this team was the last 2 years. In fact, one of the teams not on there is 2005 College World Series team. 2002 team's not on there. That's a College World Series team. 2018 Big 12 Conference champs. They weren't on there. Like, this is truly one of the best starts that Baylor's had in a long time. And now they go into this series against Kansas. Again, another upstart in this conference. You all know about Kansas after this week, but they're sitting there at 15-2, Bears at 13-3. And all they did this week, the Kansas Jayhawks, was after a loss to Minnesota up in a football stadium where the Vikings play, they went on to beat the Golden Gophers the next day on Wednesday. 29-1 and tied an NCAA record. You saw it on SportsCenter or on Twitter. I guarantee it. 5 straight home runs. Back to back to back to back to back home runs in a football stadium against the Gophers team that's actually not terrible. They took a series from Arizona State, Big 12 Arizona State, beat Oregon State, the team that Baylor lost to. And Kansas just jumped all over them. And this is going to be an interesting one this weekend, right? Because, KU, it's a weird place to play. It's going to be cold. It's always really windy. Both teams are flying way under the radar going into this season. They have a lot to prove, both of them. And baseball is a funky game. I'm so fascinated by this. In fact, there are some outlets right now that have Baylor in the top 25. Top 25 baseball team, guys. Like, we've talked so much about, the women's basketball team could be playing in the Final Four, right? men's basketball team has been so up and down all season long. That's got a lot of our attention. It might be time to start shifting our attention to Baylor baseball. Another stat that the great Max Calderon put out there, the SID for Baylor baseball, is about their game on Tuesday against Sam Houston. Sam Houston's not a good team. Midweek game, not a good team. And yet Baylor is out here kind of setting records. Where do we have it here? Have I lost this stat? Oh, no. The attendance. I don't have it in front of me anymore. The attendance was well over 2,200 for a midweek game against Sam Houston State. It's the most they've had. Oh, here it is. Tuesday night's attendance, 2,283, was the largest crowd against a non-conference opponent and the 7th largest overall of the Mitch Thompson era. So that tells me, reading between the lines here, that's the biggest crowd they've had in a game the last 3 years that was not against Texas or Oklahoma or TCU or maybe Oklahoma State. Right? This was a nothing game on a Tuesday night in the middle of March, and they got over 2,200 people out there to the ballpark. Now, to some fan bases, that's not good enough. But from where Baylor started in this Mitch Thompson era, that shows that people are hungry for a good baseball team on this campus. And I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. This is a good baseball team. And we're going to learn a lot more about them this weekend, be it being a conference series, and they're 1-5 against KU with Mitch Thompson at the helm. They've obviously lost both the series they've played against them. But this is the first kind of test. And I know you'll say, well, Cam, they played 2 top 25 teams 2 weekends ago. Yeah, they did. But this is the same team 3 days in a row that is really on your level. Like literally Big 12 on your level. And then they got Kansas State next weekend as well. So, it's not the toughest that you could open with in conference play. But again, you're talking about a 15-2 Kansas team, man, that are having all kinds of confidence. Like they just smoked Minnesota in like an epic way. And they got to watch it on TV all the time because it was played everywhere. So, yeah, you did play number 25 Auburn and number 7 or 8 Oregon State. But now is where the rubber's starting to meet the road. You got Texas State in midweek. Texas State's a really good team. And then you're out to Tucson in the next weekend. After Kansas State, you go out and play Arizona. The Arizona school we brought into this conference that's actually pretty good at baseball. So the time is now to hop on the Baylor baseball bandwagon. Like, if nothing else, it's evidenced by the fact that I'm sitting here on a conference tournament Friday, right before Selection Sunday, talking about how you need to start watching the baseball team. Crazy. I know. Crazy. When we come back on Locked On Baylor, let's talk about where Joe Lunardi has the Bears seated and who they could be playing, where they could be going on the last weekday before Selection Sunday. Let's do it next on Locked On Baylor. Let me ask you some, okay? Guys, ever check your bank account and wonder, what? Where did all my money go? Between dining out, shopping online, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track of where that money's going. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Okay? Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, for half off your first year. So we know the Bears are going dancing. They were a 10 seed. They were on the 10 line going into this week, this conference tournament week, and Joe Lunardi updates it on Thursday evening, and he's got the Bears right now moving up to a 9 seed. And ironically enough, or coincidentally enough, if that holds true and they are a 9 seed in this specific region that he's got, the South region, it'll be Scott Drew's opportunity once again to coach at Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky, because that's where the first round is. He's got him matching up with Marquette, which hopefully is better than a Marquette matchup that they had 2 years ago, right? Late November, early December of 22, where they got absolutely smoked up in Milwaukee. They would be matched up. So I know your ears are perking up, right? 9 seed, 8-9. That means in the second round, if they get there, they're facing the 1 seed, and that would be the number 1 overall seed. Yeah, South region. That's the Auburn Tigers, and boy, would that be an interesting matchup. I would be sitting here thinking, man, I'd rather have Duke's region because Cooper Flagg was in a wheelchair yesterday. But instead, you get the number 1 overall seed. So that's what's going to happen, man. If you move up from 10 to 9, it's not like you're going to be dealt the best hand of all time. That also, by the way, is the same region as our friends from Clemson, who knocked Baylor out last year. Our friends from Texas A&M as the 3 seed. In the 6 seed, the Kansas Jayhawks. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? And by the way, if KU and another team bowls off a couple upsets, you could get a Kansas-Missouri matchup in the NCAA tournament, which would be really interesting. Or you could get, the matchups of teams that have kicked the crap out of Scott Drew's teams the last 2 years. Marquette as the 8 seed that you would face in the first round. And if you make it far enough, the 2 seeds, Michigan State. You remember how fun that was last year. We're not in a position where I can be like, man, Baylor got hosed. They should be in this one. Or, man, I'd rather them be in this region. Because honestly, with the way the season has gone, they're still more or less lucky to be in. They've earned a way to get in. But as a 9 seed, you're not like beggars can't be choosers. Right? You really can't. South region, Auburn as the 1 seed. That's who you would get in the second round if this holds true and you win in the first round. It could be better. It could be worse. You couldn't be in Houston's, number 1. You'd rather have Duke. Florida, I know, is really good. I just haven't seen them play this year. I've seen Auburn play a lot. They're fantastic. Like, they're really, really good. That's why they're going to be the number 1 overall seed. But you remember, they were a 1 seed last year. Or a 3 seed last year. I totally got that wrong. 3 or 4. They went out in the first round to our buddies at Yale, who know a thing or two about having big upsets in the first round. I was glad that Yale has a new biggest all-time victory in the NCAA tournament. I think that's great. So Auburn has not lived up to expectations when it comes to the tournament the last few years. Who knows? Maybe you can get at them. But that's a long way away. We got Selection Sunday. On Sunday, we're going to go live as soon as we know where Baylor is going and who they are playing. So definitely, you're going to want to be around for that. You're going to want to hit this notification bell on YouTube to get notified every time we're going live, because that's going to tell you when we know how we're going to react to Baylor's draw in the NCAA tournament. If you want to know more about last night's game against Tech, check out the post game that we did last night. Just keeping the Friday show as more of a look ahead and kind of teasing towards Sunday. So definitely join us for that. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on X. Find us wherever you find your podcast. That helps out the channel a ton. And thank you guys for making it your first listen today and every day. Let's brace ourselves for a huge couple of weeks ahead, hopefully, as it gets mad and chaotic in March. Anyway, we will see you guys a little bit later on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.